With me now is our defence and security analyst, Michael Clark. Michael, what do you make of this sort of latest round of security measures, as they would describe it by the IDF?
Well, the IDF say it's preventative counter-terrorism, that they had information that a series of attacks were going to be launched and that there's been a steady flow of Iranian weapons and money into the West Bank. That's no secret. I mean, that has been going on. The question is, why do they choose this moment to do it? Do they really have intelligence of plots that were about to be triggered in the next few days, and they've moved for that reason? Most of us think that that's less likely, but it may be. The Israelis always say we've got evidence of this, but they don't really produce it very publicly, so you have to, in a way, take their word for it. But it's undoubtedly a very tough counter-terrorism response, and it is very preemptive, because they've gone into areas that were the same this week as they were last week and the week before, and they've attacked buildings and people, and they've done a fair amount of damage. And they've gone into 4 areas together, I mean, simultaneously, which they've not done before since the second intifada, which was 2000 to 2005. And so the fear is that this will trigger a third intifada and a general uprising across the West Bank. I mean, there's 3.5 million people in the West Bank who are very, very angry with Israeli security forces. And every night there's an upsurge in violence and explosions and shootings. It calms down at dawn and then it builds up again in the afternoon. And that's been the pattern now for 48 hours. And I suspect we'll see a fair bit more. And the bulldozers that we see are a symbol of all of this, because the Israelis claim correctly that Palestinian militants are planting bombs in the roads. They're burying them in the roads. And that's a new tactic, and they've seen it. But the response of the Israelis to that is to take up the whole road, in a sense to punish the neighbourhood by saying that if you allow these people to plant bombs in your roads, you'll lose the road. And that's a very aggressive counter-terrorist technique.
A show of force is not unusual for the IDF to do, but doing it in Gaza, with Hezbollah, now in the West Bank, and not to mention some of those things they've done in Iran and Lebanon previously. Are they stretched in terms of their strategy? Not yet.
They think they can do it, but here they are with effectively a three-front war. And it looks as if they're prepared to risk a three-front war. Most of us have said from the beginning, from October the 7th, the danger for the Israelis is that they'll end up with a three-front war, fighting in Gaza, fighting against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and with a third intifada in the West Bank. And the Israelis look as if they're prepared to countenance that in order to make some gains or make their point, to use this awful situation from the 7th of October, in a sense, as an opportunity to settle some other issues. Because their argument is, on October the 7th, everything changed. Israeli security, Middle East security will never be the same again. And that's almost certainly true. And one view is that, therefore, the Israelis need to change tack. The other view, their view, I think, of the present Israeli government, the Netanyahu government, is very, very nationalist, very right-wing, is that this is our moment to settle the overall security problem of Israel, which comes on every front. And so we've got to address every front simultaneously. Michael,
what does this say about possible ceasefire talks resuming? Because when they were last up and running, things seemed relatively quiet. I say relatively advisedly, but relatively quiet compared to now. Does this suggest that they're not going to go back to the table?
It's hard to see it. I mean, every time we've had 3 or 4 rounds of talks now. They've gone on all the time with Qatar and Egypt, the United States. And 3 or 4 times they've got to within sight of apparently a success. Every time they break down and each side blames the other, the Israeli government and Hamas blame each other. I think we're further away now. And where we're left with now is a grumbling guerrilla war on 3 fronts that will go on way into next year. And the remaining hostages who are alive, the prospects for them are not very good. And the Israeli government, whatever it says about the hostages, it does not follow through by putting their priorities first. The first priority is to destroy Hamas. It's failing to do that. To deal with Hezbollah, and it may be able to do that. And somehow on the West Bank, to run this campaign that is flirting with the idea of provoking a third intifada, whilst also trying to push Tehran back and prove to the Iranians that they cannot keep on fueling this multi-front war against Israel.
A final question, Michael. The US are backers, of course, of Israel's defence, but is there a sense that their mind is on other things in terms of an election campaign here, and Israel is doing what it wants to do in the meantime?
For sure. For sure. I mean, Netanyahu, I think, was banking on a Trump victory. That may not now happen. It's 50-50. And I think the Israelis feel that the United States is distracted enough not to stop this government, the Israeli government, as we're pursuing its own agenda. And its agenda is very nationalist. It is very assertive. And that's partly because Netanyahu is trying to stay in power with the support of these ultra-right-wing politicians who would not be in mainstream politics in most other countries. But they're the finance minister and the internal security minister. Astonishing. But their support is keeping him in power. And so basically his policy is appeasing their views.
Michael, thank you so much.